Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday. It is 4:30 outside of Chicago. My name is Andrew Johnson, and that means it is time for Office Hours, where we can share a little bit of information around our little part of the industry, talking about systems management, Intune, ConfigMgr, Entra, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and play our favorite intro, and we'll get going. All right. Well, hello, everybody. I am here solo today. I am unfortunately missing my partner in crime, Johan, but he is away for good reason. He's out in Seattle at the Microsoft MVP Summit. And as we talked about last week, we'll also be speaking at the user group out that way this week. So just me today. Hoping I can still keep you entertained for a little while and answer some of your questions. I tried to at least double up on what my reading list is looking like for the rest of the week with a lot of news coming out. So I think I will start there. I don't have anybody to banter with about the weather in the area, so we'll just hop right into it. Let's see if I can run this stream as smoothly as Johan does. All right, that looks like a desktop to me. So I thought a great place to start out today would be this GitHub repository, Misconfiguration-Manager, that has gained a little bit of traffic over the last week or so. So I'm still diving through this a little bit myself, but I think both of us are planning on giving this a serious look here in the coming days. But basically, this repository is geared towards identifying some of the potential attack vectors for ConfigMgr. As you can see here, as I scroll through the repository, you can see a table here on the some of the different attack vectors that they've identified and what those sort of what category those attack vectors land in, as well as some things that we can do to not only prevent, but to perform some early detection on if somebody was trying to attack our ConfigMgr infrastructure. Thus far, like I said, this has been gaining a lot of traffic over the last week or two. This is looking like a fantastic treasure chest of information and absolutely critical for those of us that are maintaining ConfigMgr environments as well. So I would encourage you to take a look at this and see if there's anything that you might want to implement in your environment. Also came across this exciting tweet from Christian Brinkoff over at Microsoft. They released Christian and Per Larsen along with basically released the second edition of their Mastering Microsoft Intune book. Johan and I were big fans of this book, as it sounds like many others were in the community, which is fantastic. So I wanted to call this out as well. As you all know, if you're working with Intune or Entra these days, you know that things are changing and progressing very rapidly. So I'm happy to see the second edition of this book come out get published rather, excuse me. And we'll plan on picking it up myself as well. Some other news and articles that I came across. Microsoft announced earlier today that the preview of Copilot in Intune will start rolling out April 1st. So I'm excited to get my eyes on this as we see more and more of what Copilot can do across some of our platforms. It's interesting times, as we've discussed here on Office Hours quite a few times, so quite interesting to see what we have here. Just you can see in in this first example, some of the examples that will be available to us to use Copilot. So show app installation failure, show me the apps on a particular device, policies assigned to this device. So there's some cool opportunity there, I think, and very interested to see what's available to us. So I would also encourage you, like the rest of these, to take a look at this article and see what they have on the horizon here. A couple of articles that I'm very intrigued by. I'm going to be diving into these a little bit further. I did get to skim them a little bit, but absolutely will be going through these this evening. 2 articles thus far on a deep dive into the Cloud Management Gateway in ConfigMgr. So part 1 here is surrounding the app registrations in Entra that we have to have available to us for the CMG to work properly. So this was part 1. And then part 2 here is diving into some of the cloud components, how the the CMG is actually deployed using an Azure Resource Management template. To create all of the resources available that need to be available that make up the CMG, goes through how those are created in Azure, and continues to deep dive in how all of these components, because there are a lot of components in the background that work together and work well to provide us the what I think is pretty easy to use for considering its purpose. But all of these things together really provide us the Cloud Management Gateway function that we've come to know in ConfigMgr. So really exciting stuff here. We talk a little bit about the load balancer, all of the different resources, what they mean, what they do up in Azure. So if you're running a CMG, this is a great deep dive to help you understand what exactly is going on there. I came across another blog post on Twitter from Ken Goosens. So this is a remediation script that will help ensure that your devices that have moved over to Autopatch or Windows updates in Intune from ConfigMgr. This is a topic that we've talked about quite a few times on here. There are a few blog posts we've shared even over the last couple of weeks from myself, from Ben Whitmore, talking about how that can be a challenging transition. And so Ken's got a great blog post here to add to that repository, I'll say, kind of describing the problem and some of the things that we all have struggled with in making that migration, as well as a detection and remediation script to use with Intune to help remediate some of these issues that we run across. So this is great stuff here. Ken's focus is on Autopatch, but with a brief look through it, though I'll say I have not tested this myself. I believe that this could be used with, or at least altered to be used with, just moving the Windows Update for Business workload if you're using update rings. So definitely going to be saving this off as well and using that, as that's a common problem that we come across as we're working with customers to make that migration over to Windows updates in Intune. Last but not least, I wanted to share a blog post from our friend Richard Hicks. He joined us not last week, but 2 weeks ago, wrote a blog post on how to use Intune's Cloud PKI alongside Active Directory. So as Richard mentions here at the top, there have been plenty of blog posts and YouTube videos that have come out over the last couple of weeks because everybody's been very excited about this, the potential for this solution. So numerous a bunch of content has been created to configure and deploy this solution. So his blog post isn't entirely going over that, but focusing on how to use Cloud PKI along with on-prem AD. So if you're in that situation where you want to use PKI, you want to utilize the new Cloud PKI, but you need it with your on-prem Active Directory infrastructure, Richard's blog post here will get you along that way. So great job here, Richard. Thank you for writing that up as well. So those were the things that I wanted to share today. A couple of bits of news, some new book releases, really great stuff out there. It's been a busy week, as always, here in the community. So thank you to everybody that has provided this content to the community. This is great stuff. So take a look now, see what questions we've got here. I see Siva is joining us today over on YouTube. Good to see you. Thank you for joining today. So we've got a question, time zone change. Due to a location, your time zone has been switched. I'm seeing this problem in our Windows client environment more and more for the people that work even in an office building. Any advice or troubleshooting tips? I find it hard to understand how time zone works for Windows PC in a domain environment, and Microsoft is not too helpful on that front. Definitely, it's funny. Time zone is an interesting thing. I'm quite honestly have been fairly fortunate in being able to work in one typically, at least in the customers that I've been working with and the organizations I've been working with. So let me see if I can come up with something here. Now, are these, let's see, in a domain environment? So presumably these are at least classic domain joined, possibly hybrid joined. Let's see here. So I don't have anything right off the top of my head, just checking to see if I can find something that might be helpful for you here. So yes, it does look like, okay, classic domain joined and hybrid joined. Good to know. Let's see. Yeah, I see some people having very similar issues recently. But no solution, unfortunately. So nothing that I'm coming up with quickly here, Siva. If I come across anything, or if anyone in the chat happens to have any idea on that time zone issue, please feel free to share. We'll also share if we come up with anything here in the future. I see Johan is joining us from the Microsoft campus in Redmond. So hello, sir. Good to see you here, and absolutely happy to be running this today. Although we do miss you greatly. You're there for a good reason, and hope you're having a great time and learning a lot. All right. Oh yeah, I forgot. Let's see if this works. Ah, there we go. Showing Johan's comment right there. That is a cool feature. All right. Any other questions out there? We have a whole 45 minutes available, and while I may not have all of the answers that Johan can come up with, I certainly can try to get down to the bottom of these things, and I do have some answers. As it turns out. Otherwise, for a little bit, you get me rambling about Star Wars. We have Star Wars going on right now, which is fantastic. watching the Bad Batch animated series. But I suspect most of you aren't joining office hours to hear about Star Wars. I am working on, I will mention, I've mentioned this a little bit in the past, but I kind of started this in earnest over the last couple of weeks. We've had some questions in the past about role-based access in Intune and in Entra. And I've really started to deep dive a number of test scenarios and answers to questions that we've received, and some that I have myself, of course, on how we can build out a scalable, usable role-based access solution in those platforms. So in the coming weeks ahead, I'm hope to have a fairly robust, or at least the start of a robust blog post and some content coming out surrounding that. So for those that have asked in the past, and I've mentioned that I'm running it down, I haven't forgotten about you, and hope to have some good results and some actions that we can put into place from the tests that I have planned. So I've got that on the horizon. We've got, I mentioned last week, next week I will be up at the Twin Cities Systems Management User Group with a number of others for their Intune Day. That is next Thursday, the 21st. So if you're up in that area, would love to meet you in person. Hope that you can join. And then, of course, here coming up in the next couple of months, Johan and I will also be out at the Midwest Management Summit, which many of you have heard us talk about many times, but it is, in our opinion, the most fantastic conference out there, especially for our part of the industry. That's what I can say about it off the top of my head. It is really great stuff. So if you can join, you haven't purchased any tickets for that yet. I believe there are still some left, so would love to see you all out there as well. So, all right, looks like we had a couple of questions come in. So Richard asking about a SQL in-place upgrade from 2012 to current. Any advice on that? I do. I don't have the actual links exactly handy, but I can find them real quick and share them. Let me see here. So I think this is the one that I want to share from Paul Winstanley. Let me see if... Yes, so this is 2014 to 2019, and he also has a blog post that he links to in here going from 2008 to 2014, if needed. I know, Richard, that you mentioned you're on 2012, so between these two, I think they might be able to help. It's pretty straightforward. Stop the ConfigMgr services. You can disable them if you want. Basically run the install. There are a couple of other steps in here, as well as you will need to install SQL Server Management Studio, as well as the standalone SQL reporting services when you're moving to the latest versions. But these blog posts here might give you a little bit of help, and I will post both of them in our links for this evening. Let me just make sure I copy these off. It is, speaking from my own experience, it is can be somewhat intimidating, but fairly straightforward upgrade. Um, and those are my own words. I find anytime I have to work with SQL, especially going through upgrades or managing some of the things as far as the SQL database or the instance itself go, can be a little bit intimidating. But with these resources, really makes it a lot more comfortable doing it. Let's say, as long as you've got the data backed up, it's going to be pretty hard for you to, not get back to a point that you're usable. You have a functional SQL Server instance and database. So check out these blog posts from Paul. I think they'll get you at least most of the way to where you need to be. Steve is asking, do you know if there's any similar user group in the Fort Myers or Naples area? I don't. And, I haven't seen a totally up-to-date user group list recently. Let's see if I can find one. Actually pretty sure that Twin Cities user group were hosting this for a while. Oh, maybe they've updated this. It looks updated. Anyways, I will share this. So on the Twin Cities Systems Management user group page, there is a page for other user groups. So I don't see any in Florida here. If there are some that are out there and active, would recommend reaching out and seeing if you can get that added to this page, as well as if there's somebody out there that is willing to start one. Absolutely encourage it. User groups are a fantastic resource, especially for the community. We're obviously huge proponents of them. They're a great way to network and get new information around what you and others might be doing in this space. So I will share this one. It looks like, as I said, they did update this fairly recently, I think. Great question, Siva. But if anybody else hears of any, like I said, please reach out, and I'm sure they'd be happy to add them here as well. All right. So Dan has joined us here on YouTube. On the roles front, he's been working on that as well. Basically make the scope groups that are locked to an Intune admin, then use admin units and update the resource scopes or scope tag group. Working on a script to monitor admin units for groups with a specific name and see if it's a resource group using PowerShell. When I said scope groups locked to Intune admin, meant scope tag group. Names are hard. Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of concepts and resources and roles and everything surrounding role-based access in Intune and Entra. So, Dan, if you have any interest, feel free to drop me an email or something. I'm happy to help test or collaborate on this if we're both working on something similar. No pressure or anything, but if we're trying to get to the same end goal here, I would be happy to work with you on that. Sounds like you're getting quite far along the way, though. That's great. I just realized too, I have to apologize. I'm so used to Johan running this that I think I forgot to share my screen when I was talking about the user group page here. So I just wanted to share this again, at least on screen, but I did already copy off the link so that you would all have access to this. Names and role-based access is hard, and so is managing stream content, I suppose. Yep, that's awesome. I see Dan mentioned it has a nice Microsoft training tenant to mess with. Yeah, that's I'm doing the same thing. All right. So we've got a question coming in from LinkedIn. Here on the streaming platform, it doesn't show me who it is, but basically we may have covered this before, but do I have any links on Intune delivery optimization, and have I tried Microsoft Connected Cache, looking to speed up autopilot deployments? So on the first question, links to Intune delivery optimization, yes, absolutely. And when delivery optimization comes up, I always refer to Johan's blog posts. He has done a phenomenal amount of work in this area, especially with his second role over at Two Pint Software. So let me see if we can pull up their blog. And is this the right one? It is. Delivery optimization. Here we go. So this is a post that Johan wrote a little while ago that are basically the baseline recommendations for delivery optimization in Intune. He also has one, if I go back here, for ConfigMgr, I believe. Oh, come on. Using computers are hard as well. Anyways, the question was about Intune. So this is the blog post that I recommend looking at. Scroll down here. There are a number of settings that you can set, again, sort of as a baseline to get started with delivery optimization in your organization. So great stuff here. Let me see if I can pull up the correct. I see. I when I Googled this, I got to the beta blog site. So I want to get to the not beta. Aha! There we go. That looked strange. Delivery optimization. And so, as you can see here too, when I search for that on the Two Pint blog, you can see a number of blog posts from Johan come up. And here we go. Here is that same one, but with the proper link. So I will share this one. And then the second question here about trying Microsoft Connected Cache. So have not worked with the Connected Cache software that is built for ISPs. I have just worked with the Connected Cache that is available in ConfigMgr. And let me see if I've got a post on that. Here we go. Again, refer to Johan on when it comes to delivery optimization, connected cache, and basically peer-to-peer technologies, because that's also what Two Pint focuses on. So again, Johan's done a ton of work here in this area. So here's another blog post that he wrote around the same time, setting up connected cache, and I think that this is going to help with that exact scenario. You mentioned you were looking to speed up autopilot deployments, so this is something that you are going to want to check out. And I will share this link as well. So some of the screenshots I think will be a little bit out of date, but not too bad. These are still pretty relevant. All right, I hope those things help. All right, I've got a question from Eric over on YouTube. What steps might we have to make the move from Intune back to ConfigMgr for deploying Windows updates, currently co-managed with the Windows Update workload slider set to Pilot Intune? Great question, Eric. I have not gone back up to this point, but off the top of my head, what I would try if I was going after that for the first time, I would either move the slider back to Config Manager, or remove some of your devices that are in the collection that are set to Pilot Intune for Windows updates. Make sure that those devices then are also have the client settings in Config Manager set to have software updates enabled on the Config Manager side. Again, if you change them to not have them enabled, and start there. One thing that you could do for a sort of check is take Windows Update for Business. You could take the blog post I wrote a while back on verifying that registry keys were set properly when you're going from Config Manager to Intune. You might be able to take this CMPivot query and this quick little script that I wrote up here, and set the values the opposite direction. So this CMPivot query makes sure that the values are set so that Config Manager is taking care of Windows updates, but this PowerShell script here will run and ensure that Config Manager is not taking care of Windows updates. So you might be able to take this and use that to verify that things are actually switching over. And Siva mentioned here in the chat, there's registry that sets the workload from Config Manager or Intune, in case you're looking to turn off Intune as your MDM. So great point. Thank you, Siva. I would take a look at this. Eric would probably be my recommendation. Make those changes to the pilot group, and then the client settings that are deployed to the devices that you're pulling back to Config Manager. And then you can use this quick CMPivot query to ensure that things are actually getting set correctly after the fact. So I will share that link as well. Great question. All right. Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. All right, I am using, Carol's asking here on YouTube, I'm using Config Manager to deploy patches. I get around 1% of clients showing a group policy conflict, so update scan fails. Why would only 1% be affected? I checked GPO several times, going crazy. There could be a lot of reasons that I can think of. If you have a group policy conflict, so let's see, I checked GPOs several times. I have run into times where, obviously, so I'll start with the places that you've probably looked at. Obviously, do a GP result on some of those devices that are showing as having a conflict. Start there, see which group policies are being applied, and then, of course, verify, though it may be for the fifth or sixth time based on your comment here, verify that none of those software update settings are set in multiple GPOs. So that's one place to start. Then, of course, I would double check your client settings to see if you have any conflicts there. The client settings in Config Manager, to see if you have any conflicts there. Though, of course, there are an order of operations to which group policies get set first and which one takes precedence over the other. Those would be a couple of the things that I would take a look at first. Dan had another great point right here as well. Make sure they aren't manually set in the device registry. 100% that could happen. there are just so many moving parts here that can cause an issue. I think those are absolutely the first few things that I would check. If you have a conflict, typically two things are. That's what a conflict is, right? You've got two things that are trying to set the same setting in a different way. Those are the first few things that I would check out. Let's see if I can come up with anything else for you here. So here, I don't know if this is the exact same problem, but one of the very first things I came across was an article from Patch My PC talking a little bit about conflicts. There's a specific error here, but also helps uh, working through and seeing what some of those conflicts are. So I'm going to post this one as well. And speaking of posting links, I saw Ron just asked where are the links being posted. So you will find these links available on the on YouTube on the live stream link. Either later this evening or early tomorrow morning. Typically, they get posted. But I've got a whole list of them, the things that we've talked about over the last 40 minutes, including the news updates that I had at the beginning. All of those links will get posted. Always appreciate feedback on these too. You know, some of these things like the group policy conflict, some of these things could be a shot in the dark, but if they end up working for you, we love to hear about them. And appreciate, you know, Dan and Siva hopping in here too with some recommendations for some of these questions. This is what we always talk about. Community is all about. So if any of these things fix or don't help with your issue, definitely would be happy to hear about it in the future. Speaking of posting links, looks like there is a new link that was posted that I wanted to share with you all. Johan and I are actually putting on a mini course here in a couple of weeks, March 27th. That's a Wednesday, so 2 weeks from today, from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Central Time. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Intune automation using Microsoft Graph. So you can see the course outline here. We're going to talk a little bit about what Graph is, how we can actually connect and manage Intune resources with PowerShell, how we can document and report on various things as well. So to quote Johan, I would say the price is right here. On this mini course, you can go ahead and enroll for free. This will be on our ViaMonstra Online Academy that you can attend. And if you have the time, would love to have you there. Should be a very fun one. This is something that Johan and I have been working on quite a bit recently, so looking forward to that. And I will post this link as well. We've got a whole bunch of links today. This is great. We do most weeks, but usually they're shared between the two of us. All right. Any other questions out there? We've still got 20 minutes available, so if you've got anything, happy to talk about it and try to help. Let's see. Just checking to make sure I've got all of the questions here for the moment. Just saw a follow up from Carol here. They're not set, registry keys are not set manually. Windows updates are set via the ConfigMgr client and also have a GPO that blocks access to Windows Update. So, depending on which actual setting you have in that GPO to block Windows Update, that definitely could be causing that conflict. Though I don't want to make any assumptions, but it sounds like based on your last couple of comments here, sounds like that is in place across all of your workstations, even though some of them are failing. But I would take a look at that. All right. I see Radu's joining us over here on YouTube. Is there a way to automate this step with PowerShell? Not sure which item in particular you're referring to, Radu. Do you have, can you just clarify that question, please? And while we wait for that, Sarah is asking, CMPivot fails on workstations, not servers. CMPivot.log indicates an issue with the admin service. Have you seen this? I have not. That is an interesting one. Let's see. Sarah, if you have any other information about that log file, maybe you could post it in here. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything specifically around that that I can think of. Let's see. And Radu, I see your follow up here. Let me see if the second line just didn't come through. If you did happen to, yeah, I don't see a second line here in the YouTube chat either. If it happened to be a link or something like that, I know that links won't get posted in the chat. But unfortunately, I just see the one question at the moment, both on YouTube and the streaming platform. Just see here. All right. Kurt is asking for hybrid. Is there a way to add devices to an Entra group so they sync back down to ConfigMgr collections? Natively, I don't believe so, because the cloud sync on the collections is going to be the other direction. If you are using the cloud sync that is available in ConfigMgr itself. So you could set a cloud sync on a collection and sync devices that are part of a collection up to an Entra group and make sure those two things stay in sync. If you are using Entra Cloud Sync to write information back on-prem, that does not support devices. So I think you would probably have to do a little bit of scripting here. Basically, check to see, monitor which devices are in this group, and as they get added or removed from that Entra group, check to see if they are in your ConfigMgr database, and if so, add them or remove them to the collection. I think would be how you'd have to tackle that. Good question. Honestly, just going the other direction definitely is a little bit more difficult for sure. We have a lot of options available to us for syncing things from on-prem up to Entra or up to Intune. But the other way is getting increasingly more difficult. Yep, absolutely. All right. What are the pros and cons in distributing certificates for Azure AD joined devices from local PKI and NDES versus MS Cloud PKI? Oh, that would have been a fantastic question when Richard was on the other day. So I've largely avoided leveraging PKI where I've been able to because it's difficult. In my opinion, I'm sure there are plenty of people that would disagree, but it's something to, it's an additional thing to manage. It can be difficult to manage. And then on the cloud PKI side, that's been one of the reasons that I've been so excited to start utilizing that service and was so excited to see some of the potential that we have there, because one of the promises of cloud PKI is that it should, in theory, be a little bit easier to manage those certificates. Because you have this service, it's already managed, the infrastructure for it is managed for you in the cloud, and you should be able to distribute those certificates fairly easily to your managed devices. So I talked a little bit about at the beginning that Richard had written a blog post about using that for on-prem Active Directory certificates, the Cloud PKI solution. And then, of course, it's integrated into Intune as well. So depending on your scenario, it's going to be a lot easier, in theory, to use Cloud PKI instead of local PKI and NDES. That said, with Cloud PKI, there's obviously an additional cost because it's an add-on to Intune, or part of the Intune suite if you are in your organization going forward with the Intune suite. So, Carol, not a super deep dive from my seat on those two, unfortunately, but I hope that helps a little bit. That's my perspective on those two services. Hey, Matt, I see our friend Matt has joined us. Good to see you. Any other questions out there? We've still got a good 10 minutes left. Great question, Matt. Any update from Johan about the dev tenants? No, I have not heard anything from him yet, but I am expecting that he is talking to anybody that will listen to him about the dev tenants. So maybe I don't want to speak for Johan. I'm not expecting any shareable updates, but I'm hoping that I know that he's letting our feedback known. I will say that much. Hopefully we get some good news eventually here. All right. Well, not seeing any additional questions. I think we will call it a day for now. I really sincerely appreciate everybody joining today, coming with great questions and additions to the chat as always. Before we go, real quick, I just saw a question come in. Carol's asking, is it official that the dev tenants are not going to be continued? Is there a link to official MS info? No, I have not seen anything that says the dev tenants are going to be discontinued. We're just seeing more of them not be renewed. And the reasons that they're renewing them, I guess I should say, seem to be getting more strict. But that's largely been anecdotal from maybe better than anecdotal, because we've seen a lot of members of the community that we are confident, or that we're confident are actually using their dev tenants. Some people are seeing them renewed. Some people are not, but not anything official. And anything that we come across, we absolutely will be sharing it on Twitter, on Office Hours. So nothing official yet. But great question, Carol. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure to respond to that real quick. But other than that, again, a sincere thank you from me. I'm sure we all miss Johan being here. I know I do, but it's been a pleasure chatting with everybody today. I appreciate all of the great questions and comments in the chat, as always. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much.